The business world needs better managers and leaders. Being in HR now for over 11 years, I've seen a wide variety of managers, some really good and some not so great at all. But the thing is, a great business and a great culture is reliant on really good leadership. The top line, bottom line, and overall employee morale hinges on great leadership within an organization. In this video, we're going to dive deeper into some of the most respectable leadership approaches today, because we all win when the leader gets better. Hey, what's up? My name is Courtney, and I'm the founder and career coach at careersuccessnow.com, where we help leaders and professionals maybe like you go from stuck to landing great six-figure career roles. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so that you can follow along in the journey and really advance and level up in your career. When you think of great leaders such as John F. Kennedy or Nelson Mandela, Winston Churchill, were they born great leaders or did they become great? This begs the question, are we natural born leaders or can we develop leadership over time? Our answer to this question can greatly influence how we approach leadership in this modern day time. So now let's look at 2 leadership models and then 4 leadership styles. And that way you can follow along and ask yourself, what style and approach do you appreciate the most? And what kind of leader are you? Plus, what are the pros and cons of every single thing we will be talking about? Let's dive right into it. Leadership model number 1, the traits approach. This model believes that people rise to leadership because they are naturally born leaders. They are special, gifted, and it's just something that is innate within them. This is not about how leaders can develop into leadership over time. This is truly an approach based on the belief that people are born natural leaders. Here are common natural leadership traits that this theory truly believes people have if they are born that natural leader that I'm talking about. Intelligence, self-confidence, social ability, determination, integrity, and grit. There's a lot of support behind this born to be a leader approach because it does seem logical in many ways. Some people do have a natural gift for leadership. It's like they are born for leadership. It's also well studied and easy to put into practice because if you think about it, a business may need a leadership role and you can go out there, HR professionals can go out there and fill that need within an organization quite quickly because people have those natural gifts. It's also easy to run a questionnaire to understand what gifts somebody may have when it comes to leadership. So this is another support behind this model. On the flip side, this approach does not come without its criticisms either. For example, people argue that this is a very surface level way to judge somebody's character and leadership potential as well. It also doesn't factor into job performance, aka how well is somebody performing and how can they have potential to lead in the future. Also, how do we know that that list of traits, the one I said earlier, is the be-all end-all? There are thousands of good traits to leadership. Let's look at leadership model number 2, leadership development. The fact of the matter is businesses need great leadership, and because there's often a war on great talent, there's a lot of advantages to growing leaders within an organization. In other words, leadership development. Leadership development is based around the beliefs that leadership can be developed, it can be learned. In fact, studies show that the primary ingredient for great performance is actually from the leader above that person. In other words, that's the biggest influence on top performers. This is why organizations invest thousands, if not millions of dollars into great leadership development programs, coaching, mentorship. How can we take a great person and turn them into a great leader? John Maxwell is a worldwide expert when it comes to leadership. He says that we learn leadership in 3 main ways: modeling, training, and applying ourselves through self-discipline. So even he says leadership development is all about how can we take a great employee and expand their skills so that they can truly learn leadership. Leadership development is also an evolving transition from being an individual contributor to then supervising and then influencing. So in that first supervisor role, this is often where we start off. We often end up optimizing tasks or improving processes, but the end goal of a leadership role is to eventually rise above and be able to influence others, much like John F. Kennedy. He didn't sit around and just supervise people. He spoke to the crowds, he spoke to the masses, and he massively influenced the people around him. Andy Frisella, the CEO of First Form, is a prime example of this. He is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and he didn't get there by simply being born a great leader. He developed those traits over time, and with practice, with grit, with perseverance, fortitude, he kept going, and now he can be at the top of an organization that employs thousands of people, and he simply got there by being a leader that developed over time. Now let's dive into 4 different kinds of leadership styles and ask yourself, which one are you? Leadership style number 1, autocratic leadership style. Years ago, I worked with this director of engineering that oversaw 90 really smart professional engineers, structural, mechanical, designers, whatever it may be, and he was the epitome of an autocratic leader. When he gave a demand, people listened. He had a command and control style approach, and he was an order maker. When he gave orders, people followed. He wasn't really his team member's friend per se, he was the boss. He had a tough job to do. He had a big role that was super important when it came to the engineering of the projects that brought us in ultimate revenue. It was a very business critical role, and it was tough. But he was a classic autocratic leader. Here are further insights into the autocratic leadership style. They are boss-centered, authoritarian style, centralize their authority, and often take control. They like to tell you what to do, and they don't always empower others to make decisions themselves. They often take control of the situation, and they make their own decisions based on their own evaluation of the situation. They also maintain a clear distance between themselves and others in the organization. So the pros of this autocratic leadership style is they can be very clear and concise in the way that they operate. They're also not ambiguous. So in high pressure, time sensitive environments, this is a great approach because they take control and they simply make decisions right away. However, the cons of this leadership style is people feel like they're walking on eggshells, or they might have a tight rope around them. In short, this style is often beneficial in the moment, maybe in the short term, but in the long term, it's not always the best leadership approach. Leadership style number 2, democratic leadership style. Have you ever had a leader that continually asks for your opinion on a certain process or policy? They often like gathering ideas and getting consensus before they move forward. If so, you might have had a leader with a democratic leadership style. This style often values collaboration and often moves forward once they have the consensus and feedback from other people, even if it's not necessarily what they specifically want. They like to know what the overall consensus is and moves forward based on that feedback. And don't get me wrong, they don't give away their power in this democratic leadership style. They often just seek feedback from multiple sources before they move forward. The way they gather feedback could look like through surveys, consultants, one-on-one feedback from meetings. They also keep a low power distance. In other words, they actually do connect with people quite often, no matter what level they are. The pros of this leadership style is people often feel a sense of ownership in their job, empowerment, and a sense of improvement over time, which does lend a helping hand to lower turnover over time too. However, the cons of this approach is there could be a higher commitment of time before any decision is made, and you can end up gathering so much data that eventually people feel frustrated or a little bit upset when you don't implement the exact feedback and data that they gave you. Leadership style number 3, laissez-faire leadership. Laissez-faire leadership literally translates into let them do. It's a very hands-off approach with a lot of freedom and space. This leadership style is very hands-off. It gives people a lot of autonomy to solve challenges and problems themselves. Laissez-faire leaders give a lot of resources, but it's not completely handing the power over to the people. There still needs to be responsibility of a leader. In other words, leadership does not just disappear, but laissez-faire laissez-faire leadership is very much hands-off and allows people to do what they need to do to get things done. A lot of self-motivated, highly educated professionals can find themselves under this laissez-faire leadership. In fact, I remember I worked for a specialty doctor's office, and this was the epitome of a laissez-faire leadership style. There was one leader that did have an overall higher responsibility of being a managing partner, but all of the other doctors that had a share in the organization, they very much were hands-off, allowed people to be empowered, make their own decisions, but there was that responsibility of the managing partner constantly around. Overall, there's very minimal interference and control, but still resources and leadership provided. In a startup organization, for example, you might see a laissez-faire leader that is very hands-off, and he empowers his people to really go and charge and get the things done that they need to do. On the flip side, a laissez-faire leadership might be a little bit challenging for somebody that is just starting off in their career and could benefit from a lot of coaching and guidance. Another con is there could be a lot of blending of responsibilities, and people might not get clear on who does what, when, where, why, because of that lack of structure. Ask yourself, are you in a laissez-faire organization? Leadership style number 4, strategic leadership. Strategic leaders sit between the organization's primary operations and its growth path. This form of leadership requires vision, competitive awareness, and adaptability. Strategic leaders aim to guide their organization towards its long-term goals. By utilizing this kind of leadership style, you can create a forward-thinking, agile, adaptable company that can really thrive in this kind of business world we live in today. They ask questions, develop an executive team, and often tie performance to the growth of an organization. This approach often supports values such as accountability, productivity, collaboration, and transparency. This approach is really desirable for a lot of organizations because it values vision and it allows people to really buy into the goals of the organization. It can be super motivating and super exciting for employees. So this approach really tailors to a wide variety of team members. However, one con of the strategic leadership style is the business may take on too much in anticipation for the future goals of the organization. In other words, they may be too forward thinking and really take on a lot of risk and be super ambitious and then miss out on current day challenges that they could be discussing and tackling. So it's important to have a really good finger on the pulse of the current day present challenges as well. Okay, now that I've gone through 2 different models of leadership and 4 different leadership styles, let me know in the comment, which one do you appreciate the most? What kind of leadership style are you currently under, maybe within the organization that you're within, or what kind of leader are you? Let me know in the comments. I would love to understand further what my audience really appreciates when it comes to the different leadership styles. What are some pros and cons I might have missed that you've observed in your business world? Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end here. I can't wait to see you in the next video.